Hello there. It's Gary Lucas, your old friend. It's 3 o'clock here in New York. And I'm doing part 2 this afternoon of my tribute to Jeff Buckley. The occasion being the tragic passing of Jeff 23 years ago yesterday. For those of you who saw part 1, which I've posted also on YouTube as well as Facebook on my YouTube channel, I took you up right to the recording of Grace, the other track that became more or less an anthem, which opens Jeff's fantastic Grace album, is a song called Mojo Pin, which began, as all of our songs did, as a solo guitar and instrumental that I composed under the title And You Will. And I want to play that right now. Okay, now the original track had a hardcore coda, which I tacked on to the end of it after writing that instrumental. because Jeff was a huge fan of bands like Bad Brains and Dinosaur Jr. And I just thought, okay, we're really going to have to explode the moment in the song when we come to record it and rock out. And if you hear the original demo, which has never officially come out, from the same session that yielded the Grace demo, this is in August 1991, recorded at Murray Weinstock's Krypton Sounds. If you hear that demo, you'll hear the fully realized song with a hardcore section, and I've reinstated it in my live shows with various singers over many years. I've invited all sorts of people, pretty much anybody who has the nerve to attempt to sing these songs, I've given a platform to, because I figure, well, go ahead and it's yours to make a fool of yourself here. Well, I wouldn't attempt to sing them, is all I'm going to say. But I've had some fantastic singers who have really scaled the mountain, let's say, by singing both these songs. And it's not easy because Jeff's vocal parts are so sculpted and indelible that it's very hard to get away from what he laid down at that session. That was like their definitive, I'd say, those demos. And if you hear the versions that I played on the Grace album, which was recorded 2 years later, pretty much 2 years later, in 93, you'll hear that they were very much set in stone at those sessions. Not much modification done by Jeff. Some brilliant touches added. Grace, for instance, features an amazing string arrangement pretty much by Jeff with Carl Berger, and a little bit of a breakdown chorale section in the middle over the changes. But essentially the die was cast on those sessions, and I walked out of there that day thinking, I have the atomic bomb in my pocket here in the form of this little DAT tape, because that's what we used to store sounds on in those days. That was considered state-of-the-art. It was a new format, digital music. And DAT, despite many problems with dropouts and mechanical failure with the cap stands, it's still, it was a fully dimensional way to capture what was essentially rough mixes that were done by the engineer Johnny Green, a great Irish fellow who was Murray Weinstock's engineer at Krypton. And one thing that I took away from that section is Jeff came down at 5 and we had to leave at 6. So he did his full vocals plus an overdub of harmonica, a very Dylan-esque harmonica on Grace, which if you get Songs to No One, you can hear the demo. It's on this great album of early work on the Knitting Factory label. He does this kind of Dylan-esque harp blowing in the choruses, which I think is a nice touch. But when he came to record it for the Grace album, a decision was made to lose those things, probably by Jeff. When we were done with the vocals, over these tracks, given that we only had, I'd say, 5 hours on that session, maybe 6 hours maximum from about noon to 6, there was another session that was going to start with a jazz drummer named Kenwood Denard. And so Johnny Green ran off monitor mixes really quickly for me and Jeff, and just threw up everything that was pretty much on the tracks. I don't think he did much so far as adding reverbs or anything. It was pretty much all there. I had a reverb on my guitar, and there was some on the vocals, but some of the greatest bits were Jeff's overdubs of his vocals. If you listen to the end of Grace, on the demo, he has these little elfin, leprechaunish voices whispering, "Wait in the fire, wait in the fire," which is a really haunting moment. Anyway, we were playing back that particular section, and in walked Kenwood Denard. And I remember his nose kind of twitched, like, and his eyes shot up, and he had this expression like, "What the fuck is that? What do you call it?" So I walked out of there with the DAT of the two monitor mixes, and I said to myself, this music is going to shake the world. It's that strong. I thought, we really captured a moment, and it was fresh. And the whole idea of Gods and Monsters, as Jeff and I hatched our plans for it at the White Horse Tavern, you got to go back and watch episode 1, folks, was to kind of take the classic rock format of shamanistic lead singer and guitar hero as embodied by the Smiths, the Doors, and Led Zeppelin, who were pretty much our favorite bands, Jeff and I's, to take that and drag it kicking and screaming into the 90s, because this is 91, and I thought that these songs were very good realizations of that template. And anyway, the next step was I played this for a bunch of people. Jeff got a copy, and I played it to death for myself. I was never tired of these sessions because I really heard lightning in a bottle, real magic that got captured at the session. And it just sounded so fresh, as I said. So I remember going over to Hal Wilner's apartment in the East Village, because Hal was the guy who was instrumental in putting us together at the tribute to Tim Buckley. That's where I met Jeff, and that had taken place in the spring, just 3 or 4 months before recording these demos. And Hal dug them, and he said, I want in on this. So, that was nice. I got, a vote of confidence from Hal. Though in at that point was was an iffy proposition because we really needed a label, but Hal was down, as a producer or, to help midwife the project further. And I got them to my friend and lawyer at the time, Michael Ackerman, who really, perked up his ears when he heard this and said, this is great. And Michael had been with me through the wreckage of the second version, really, of Gods and Monsters, which is another story. He said, okay, I think we finally got something. This is great. So he played it for this A&R person at Imago Records, which was a boutique label distributed by BMG. And she was a huge fan of Tim Buckley. She had a picture of Tim Buckley on her wall. And she said, okay, this is fabulous. I'm really interested in the project. And, I got to hear it. So I brought Jeff in to do, Jeff came of his own volition because meanwhile he had met Rebecca Moore at the tribute to Tim Buckley, and she'd become his girlfriend. So he was like hell-bent on hanging out more in New York. At this point, there wasn't a lot going on for him in L.A., needless to say. In the music scene, he'd sort of exhausted what he thought were his possibilities. So I arranged for us to do a showcase at what was called the CMJ. I'm not sure if it's still going, the College Media Journal. It was a magazine tip sheet that went out to all the alternative college music stations. And they had this big conclave every fall where a lot of radio programmers and media people on the college music scene came to New York to boogie it up in the Hilton or wherever they were doing their hangouts. And then there were showcases held all over town. So me being like a longtime card-carrying member of the Knitting Factory contingent of supposed downtown music, I arranged for Jeff and I to do a showcase with Gods and Monsters. Now we did one maybe a week or so earlier where we played 2 songs at Tramps nightclub as, I think it was for a benefit for somebody or another. I know that the Hound, James Marshall, who's on Facebook a lot, my friend, he emceed that one. And then for this show, we had, let's see, the lineup was, I couldn't get Tony Lewis. He wasn't available. Maybe he was with Arda Lindsay that night. Not sure. But I had Jared at both of those gigs. And for the second gig, I had a great drummer, Michael Blair, who was one of Hal's buddies and really a good, solid drummer. Worked with Lou Reed, among other people. And we did a showcase at about 1 a.m. on a frigid, cold night. I think it was November 1st. And in the audience was John Cale in a sailor suit, in a full regalia, naval regalia. And Nick Cave, who was a buddy of mine who I had worked with, and I'd actually performed with him at a festival in Rotterdam. Nick was there, I think, with Mick Harvey from the Bad Seeds. And we rocked out. And there's some bootleg clips. I posted one from the concert of us doing Grace on Vimeo. It might also be on YouTube. Check that one out. And I brought Jeff on in the middle of it to do 3 songs. And anyway, I played that tape for the person, the A&R woman at Imago. And she said, that's great. Okay, I want to meet and hear you guys live. So she came over right here to this apartment with another friend of mine who worked there with her. And they listened to Jeff and I just run through, I think, those 2 songs, Grace and Mojo Pin, and maybe one more, maybe Bluebird Blues. And she said, great, I want to do something. So a deal was afoot. All right, so I'm going to pick up the other guitar now. I realize I'm doing a lot of talking at these things. I'm probably going to have to do a part 3, but there seems to be enough interest because I can't really get to all, either the story or all the music that we did together. But suffice to say, I went off for a very long tour of Europe, starting in the UK in the middle of November. A few weeks after that showcase that we did, Jeff went back to LA. And I was like, I really gotta now come up with some more music. Gotta write some more material. And I think this is something that I wrote while I was like on the road, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the title song of Songs to No One, which I happen to have a copy of right here, with this beautiful picture of me and Jeff backwards. He still had long hair at the point that it was taken. And well, this didn't have a title, and then it was later, finally, when this album was put to bed with Hal Wilner as the producer. A couple of years after the passing of Jeff, it was given the title Song to No One because of the lyrics in here. So. bit of Bluebird Blues, which was the first thing that we jammed out here in the apartment. And that's the same acoustic guitar that I've had all these years. Really not much worse for the wear, but wear it I have been doing. I pretty much play it every day and take it everywhere I play all over the world. 40 plus countries at last count. So while I have a few minutes, I want to thank these people who were so generous and gracious to contribute. John Fathom, and I think I know he's been watching these shows and commenting. He may be a second timer here. Mickey McMahon, he's like a 10th timer. Claire Delabar Debay, thank you so much. This sounds French. Natalie Chavaroche, I know she is French. Natalie Manis. Dave Schultz, again, thank you so much. Dave was one of the Trouser Press mainstays. It was a great American rock magazine that specialized in English rock and then the whole punk new wave scene. Buddy Rode, thank you, man. And Rick Warren. I can't tell you how much it means to us. And while I'm on the subject, please check out the complete Jeff Buckley and Gary Lucas songbook on the Ezer Disco label. It's an Italian label featuring De Niro on vocals, Francesco Arpino on various instruments, keyboards mainly, and production, Phil Spalding on bass, and some other great musicians. This has all 12 songs recast. All 12 songs I wrote with Jeff recast in new studio versions. And if you really want the fullest details about my work with Jeff, I'm just scratching the surface here. Check out my book, Touched by Grace, My Time with Jeff Buckley, on the Jawbone label, I would say, the Jawbone Books. It's a UK indie label. This book originally came out in Italy, in a translation. I guess it's a good one. I don't know, because I'm not really fluent in Italian, but I was told it was a good one. It got all sorts of great reviews, and it's available. I would urge you to go to my website where you can get an autographed copy of this at GaryLucas.com. And, okay, so where were we in the story? Yeah, I went on this tour, and so I wrote a whole bunch of songs, instrumentals, and I was like, I can't wait to get with Jeff and give him these things. And I got back after New Year's. It was a long one. And Caroline really didn't recognize me at the door there. Well, that's not exactly true, but, it had been a couple of months plus. I haven't done a long one like that in a while. Anyway, and then it turned out while I was gone, this deal had gone through with Imago, and they put some money on the table, enough to allow Jeff to travel to New York to write with me, also to visit Rebecca and a hang in New York. And the idea was we were supposed to work up a whole album's worth of songs and then do a public showcase. And I'll tell you more about that next time, because it's very dramatic, and I'm just trying to deal with the events of the last few days as everybody here in America. I'm sure all the European and otherwise fans who are tuning in who are not American are probably as stunned and saddened by events as I am. I know Jeff would have been. Really a tragedy, but anyway, I think stay positive and try to keep smiling is the best one can do in this period, and try and accentuate the positive and keep a sense of humor, and a very not very humorous time here, right? of She Is Free, which I thought was actually the most commercial song or music that I gave Jeff, and he did a beautiful melody and lyric on that one. Check it out. It's on Songs to No One. And, okay, I just want to say from Lammy, it's like a big lamb coming at you. I'm Gary Lucas. Love that you're tuning in. I really, really so appreciate it. I can't wait to see you again. I'll see you here Tuesday. I'll tell you more about the story of Jeff Buckley from my perspective. And stay safe, be well. We're almost at least phase 1 in New York, maybe a week from Monday, maybe. We'll see. Hang in there. See you soon. All right, love you guys.